Productive Disruption is a podcast presented by Rhodes Branding, spotlighting bold and innovative ideas that have the ability to reshape K-12 education. If you're looking for actionable ideas about how to operate and innovate your school, you've come to the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Productive Disruption. I'm your host, Molly McGowan-Gorsuch, and I'm the Director of Client Engagement at Rhodes Branding. AI continues to be a conversation starter in education and everywhere these days. So I'm excited to have on the podcast today a superintendent who is well-versed and proactive in modeling the effective usage of AI in his district and who is sought after for his insights on the matter. CEO and Superintendent of Indian Hill Exempted Village School District in Cincinnati, Ohio, Kirk Koennecke recently served on a superintendent's panel about AI at the School Superintendents Association annual conference. Kirk, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Molly. I really appreciate your time and look forward to talking about all things AI.
Yeah, so you have just returned from the AASA National Conference where you were part of that superintendent panel. And I believe it was called the Social Dilemma of AI, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So what were some of those takeaways you got from the conversation you had with your peers? Because you had quite a panel there. What were some of those innovative things that you're seeing other K-12 leaders doing right now using AI?
You know, there were some amazing colleagues on that panel who represented a diverse swath of schools across America. So colleagues from California and Illinois and Connecticut. And what I took away was that everybody understands the pace of change that is surrounding us, and that AI is not just a tool, but it is a new paradigm that we all have to learn to cope with because it's going to change the world. And I found that in my colleagues sharing, it reinforced for me two things: that we have to do this together and provide the environment for people to lean in and learn. And then that also will provide the opportunities that can come with using AI productively and mitigate the fears.
Now, I like what you said about providing that environment for people to lean in and learn. That kind of is aligned with what I've heard you say before about how if a district's really going to embrace AI, it has to be signaled and modeled by leadership. So how are you doing that? And what does this look like at the superintendent level, but then also among those that you're leading and having model at Indian Hill Exempted Village School District?
Well, we're very fortunate here in Indian Hill to have a leadership team that wants to learn. So at a high level, our leadership team members are leaning into that learning and literally playing with the tools, especially the Chat GPT-4 and the next version of Bard and all of these things, right? And trying to make sure that we can use this not just for the writing functions, but to start to think about automation in some of our processes and systems. And then we are very fortunate here to have innovation coaches at all four buildings. So our four innovation coaches are working with people. And what they do is they try to provide things like lunch and learns, where you can come if you're a colleague and sit with other colleagues and not have not feel like you're getting an assessment, but that you can actually just be curious and then learn a little bit, play a little bit, and then see how that kind of formulates your own thoughts on AI and the tools around you. And then I think at the very low level right now, but something that we will become much more intentional about, is when we are onboarding and orienting new employees, that we're screening for these skills and tools on the HR side. And then we're also trying to find people who can add to the mix who are going to be able to use these things with students. And the last piece is students. I heard from colleagues, right? Getting students and letting them show you what they know is a great way to get adults to also want to lean into learning.
Tell me more about those lunch and learns. How often do those take place? And is it just for anyone in the school system?
Yeah, that's the great thing about our lunch and learns is you can sign up at any building with your innovation coaches and principals, and they typically are happening once a month, sometimes twice a month. And our innovation coaches are ISTE certified people, right? They're Google educators. They are people themselves who love to learn about technology integration, but also like to be great allies to our teachers. And they are leading the lunch and learns. And then when we get a teacher who's passionate about something, they'll work with the coach and deliver. So it's a great way for people to have a fun and interactive learning environment. The other thing we've done is reached out to our community to provide some learning. We do that through our partners, our PTO, and we also do that through an engagement we call the Platinum Club with some of the people in our community who might not have children in school anymore, but who want to have a connection. And those give us a venue to also introduce these ideas and talk to the community, which I think my colleague from Illinois, Matt Montgomery at Lake Forest, is doing with his community. Finding a way to make sure people know what you're doing inside your school district so that they can understand the bigger picture outside is always really important.
That's huge. And I also know that you as a superintendent are modeling that in just by the fact, obviously talking about it, but using it. What are some of the ways that you share that you share with others in your district saying this is how AI is helping me and this is how I am implementing it?
Well, I just started by experimenting and asking questions using ChatGPT, and really in my role, I ask a lot of questions. A lot of people may not realize, but I think to be an effective superintendent, you have to spend a lot more time listening than talking. And a lot of people see you talking publicly, but behind the scenes, typically you're asking questions and trying to get answers. And so this was a natural tool for me to just start feeding my own questions into this, and then to think about how it can help me write and communicate better. And then I've worked with my CCO, Heather Higdon, who I think is one of the best communications professionals in the country, who is leaning into this in terms of producing products that we can actually push out, both internal and external, with the writing tools. The other thing that I've learned and really been fascinated by is the graphic and visual tools. And so I've worked with partners who are creating tiles for children and teachers to use, like Jason Learning, where they're using AI for graphic visual filmmaking tools. And it is absolutely fascinating to see how children can kind of become their own content producers using these AI tools. And I wish I had all day to play with some of those tools, but really just it's powerful learning.
Absolutely. Now, I know I definitely want to talk a little bit more about how it can support some efficiencies in HR, because I've heard a few things that some districts are doing, and I think we hear a lot of generalities, right? We're saying this is definitely something to increase your efficiencies, but I'd love to hear some specifics that maybe others can think about implementing in their daily practice, particularly in that human resources and employee engagement.
Yeah, I think that on the HR side, we always try here at Indian Hill to think about what will the applicant's experience be like. So one of the things we've tried to do is really work on the formatting and the presentation of our job postings, and then trying to make the process as efficient as possible and automate as many parts of it as we can, so that an applicant will only have to click a couple times to decide to apply here, and they can see all the information they need. And then we try to hold their hand through the rest of the process, but get them into an interview quickly. Where the AI piece comes in, though, I think, is if you're the applicant, the way that you can prepare your materials, the way that you can prepare a resume, the way that you can share your own experiences, even the creation of your own website, the portfolio that you want to showcase and bring with you, all of that can be prepackaged, pre-shared, and pushed out before you ever get through the door for an interview. And I think that is a huge thing for people who are entering the profession to think about, or changing jobs to think about. On our side, as the people who are hiring, we can discern very quickly someone's background, what's real, what's fake, what they wrote that's original, what's not. And so I think it also heightens that level of accountability to make sure that you present yourself the right way.
That's a good point. And also not just about content generation, but I know that analysis, right? That's got to be a huge, probably lifts a lot of weight off and frees up a lot of time. How are some data analysis functions being used in the HR space?
Well, I think, again, we're just dabbling with this here, but where we're going is when somebody, for example, has to submit an essay where they're answering a key question for you and applying for a job, you can easily say, hey, summarize the main points of this essay, or pull out the argument, or pull out the celebration. And then you can really analyze at a high level, what are the key points that someone is trying to get across in a conversation? What are the key elements of an argument someone's making? How do they rationalize something that they wrote about, maybe their philosophy of education? And so those are amazing opportunities for us on the HR side to really screen effectively. And then, of course, the magic in an interview is to ask the right questions. So pooling different questions from different people and different jobs over time, it's always great to have a bank of amazing questions. And then being able to know what the amazing answer is ahead of time, it equips everybody in the room when you actually meet face to face to be able to do this the best, because hiring is a really important decision.
Right. And like you said, it really gets to the human interaction faster and gives you more time and honestly allows you to be more present, probably, right?
Yeah, for sure. The presence when you are together, saving time and being efficient around a process is so much, it's important for your whole team. And in my role, I have an HR director who does a great job, and I want him to feel like he can use his time effectively as well. So we're always looking at how to make the process better for the customer, and then also for our team.
So what about once that person is onboarded or they're a member of your staff, how can AI be used to personalize training for that employee and their professional development?
One of the things that we're working on right now is here we have a personalized professional learning plan. And there are districts who do this in different ways. But here at Indian Hill, we basically have quantified about 18 hours a year that are provided to an employee as kind of freedom within a framework. So if you're passionate about learning about AI as a topic, just in general, you may partner with one of our innovation coaches or with a team or department, or maybe even with a vendor partner, whether they're for profit or nonprofit. And you may use that 18 hours that year to do your professional learning. And it may be asynchronous, it may be outside of this regular school calendar, but you get to use that 18 hours and then you trade that 18 hours for 2 of the days within the school calendar. So not only are we using our calendar more flexibly to treat employees like professionals, but the topics themselves are the topics that matter. So if you want to get ISTE certification, if you want to become a Google educator, if you want to learn about AI and you want to become an expert in BARD, those are the things we're looking at in our menu so that they're relevant and timely for our educators, and knowing that people are in different places. So some people need to learn about technology tools and then technology as a program or a system in different ways at different times.
I know, and that's something I know we've heard in the student space, right? Is like that personalized learning and being able to use data analysis on, where they are in their learning process and where they need to be met with, X, Y, or Z. So the same can be used for your staff members. I love that. So in the same way that, this can be used to customize that individual professional development tracks or provide recommendations to supervisors, I'm assuming it can also be used to analyze that employee data to provide other tailored recommendations. What does that look like, or where do you see that going?
I really think that where our focus has been is to look at how our communications are being received and how can AI tools help us understand across all the platforms how often our messages get across and to what degree, and using a lot of that data and then pulling it constantly is going to allow us to analyze and do these after action reviews when we communicate something out a lot quicker. I can see how in the future this is going to help schools to be even more proactive about safety and security, which I think we're just starting to dabble into and study. I can also see us taking proficiency test accomplishment data, I like to call it, and analyzing it longitudinally in a much more efficient way and maybe even repackaging it based on what we do with our queries. So, we're just scratching the surface of how this can help all of us look at our profession a lot differently. And I will just say this, the most powerful thing is when our grade level teachers, like at our elementary school, we have amazing grade level teams. When a fourth grade level team can get together and they don't have to worry about collating all the data and researching, they can pull all the data and spend more time analyzing and synthesizing and coming up with action steps together. That's when the power of this will be realized, because all the time they saved not doing the other things can now be time to help children. And I think AI reinforces to me the number one thing is that more than ever, you can do a lot with AI, but someone needs to teach you and help you or guide you and coach you along the way, which means the value of teachers has gone sky high, in my opinion.
That's a good point, because I know that there's always that naysayer, the fear, oh, it's going to replace you. It's going to, AI's this technology. And I think that's, ever since technology started out, that was the overwhelming fear. Oh, this is going to replace something that already exists. This is going to replace us. But like you said, it's just showing that now more than ever, they are needed to show how it's not only useful for them, but for their students.
And we're not producing widgets, we're producing people. If it was another industry, maybe we might think a little bit differently here. But I think that there's this new way to look at AI as a paradigm shift that is not from one old paradigm, a way of thinking, to a new. This is an overarching paradigm that takes all previous paradigms and allows you to plug and play and mix them and morph them. And that blows people's minds. So when we think about it, to try to simplify, it's really about all the tasks that we thought were really, really complex in the past. AI is going to make much more simple. And all of the things that we have always known that are really, really important or high impact for people in their life require a lot of governance and ethic and moral decision making. Well, AI, we have to redouble our efforts on really thinking about governance and power structures and authority and who is thinking and analyzing ethical and moral decisions and implications. And AI is going to allow people to do that a lot quicker, but that's going to require even more commitment to leadership. And I think those are things children can be taught. And that's why teachers and coaches become so valuable in this whole thing, because a lot of tasks we just thought were complex in the past are now not going to be so complex, but we're still going to have to make decisions about all these things.
Right. You're going to have to use your strategy, your human strategy and decision making to use that new information or that information that you got to quicker.
Yeah.
So how, I'm assuming that kind of information and those kind of lessons on ethics and proper usage are part of those lunch and learns. How are you imparting that also to students?
I think for students, and I use the term leadership, right, but I don't use it loosely. I think what we need to see in schools that has been developing over time, which maybe came out of a need to help parents, was character education programs. But I think where it's going is this idea of leadership and digital citizen programs, which is, we can all teach transferable skills, whether you want to call them the 5 C's, communication, collaboration, critical, whatever you want to label them. These are transferable communication and decision-making skills that allow people to lead themselves, to self-govern, and then allow them to lead others. And so I think we all really need to invest a lot in leadership, because getting people to critically think before they make decisions allows them to use their ethics and morals to have kind of that North Star and that value compass that they all need to get through their life successfully. AI is going to provide you with a lot of time and flexibility to do things very efficiently. And you can monetize that. We all see that already. You can do that to work, in any industry that currently exists. And then there's going to be all these new roles and these new emerging jobs. And you're going to have to make decisions about them. And then, of course, for you and your family. So I think we can double down on leadership teaching while we're learning the tools. Quite frankly, people who are afraid of technology don't need to be afraid of AI. all they have to be able to do is communicate to make AI change their life. So everybody's going to be impacted by this.
Now, you also, when you talked about values and utilizing that ethically, that kind of made me think about how the standardization through AI is a way, like when you're able to step back and know that everything has been standardized, it's a kind of a way to remove the biases and subjectivity that can arise in certain processes. I think about, employee evaluations. Are there others that you're thinking could be impacted in K-12?
Well, I think when I think of what you just said, it makes me actually think about the bigger picture of bias itself. If we teach people to become critical consumers and use AI tools to understand how all this decision making works, for good or bad, we can create better critical consumers and people who will actively try to remove bias from scenarios. And that is better for hiring, it's better for evaluations, it's better for employer engagement and culture, and it's better for kids. We spend a lot of time in social studies classes already, and language arts classes, trying to get kids to become critical consumers and understand, what is the deep fake out there and what is real. And learning to discern those things is really powerful learning. And then you can apply that in lots of other ways in your life. And if you're going to be a writer, or an author, you think you're going to create something as an artist, this is all very, very important stuff. But it goes beyond even those industries, right? So we're really producing better citizens if we get them to think about the ethics and the morals of all these things and the implications of using these tools.
Absolutely. Something I heard you talk about in another podcast was about how this also supports your relationships. And again, this is ultimately giving you more time and allowing you to have those more one-on-one times with your stakeholders. But about board relations and helping prep board members, how are you seeing AI use some efficiencies there for you personally?
So some people may not do it the same way that I do, but as a CEO of a school district that is involved in a lot of things, I am typically briefing committees and our board and reporting out, a summary almost weekly. The degree to which I can do that with my colleagues and my team who are filtering information to me and then filter it up to the board in anything that's written communication can become so much more efficient and save me time. Literally save me from typing. So these voice to text tools and being able to talk into a document and then being able to morph and change a document, all of those things are things I'm still practicing, but over time will save me time. And then communicating, really keeping it down to earth, right? Face to face, phone calls, in-person meetings. It allows me to focus more on that and the relational side of conversations instead of trying to document and share everything in writing over and over again. It really allows me to just focus on what matters most, which is people.
Absolutely. So what are some recommendations you have for other districts who are wanting to, get more into AI? And I know there's some fear. There's still the fear factor with some folks, but what are some practical applications and recommendations you have?
Well, first and foremost, I think the federal government, I think COSIN, I think All for Ed, there are some groups out there who have put out some AI tools and reports and white papers. And I think it's important if you're a school leader to read them. I think just start by reading them or having ChatGPT summarize them for you. Because at the end of the day, that's really powerful learning. And the other thing I would say is, even if it costs you a few bucks, it's worth setting up a tool. And if you don't want to spend the money, you can use Google or Microsoft or some other platform that already has some AI tools at work. And you can go through some self-tutorial using that platform. It's a learning management system, right? I could do it on Google right now by myself. Or I could get together with a couple friends and I could do that in work or out of work and just, play. And I think you have to give yourself some time to explore and play. And then professionally speaking, if I were a teacher, and I was working with anybody coming into my schools now and plan on being around and relevant for the next, 10 to 20 years, I would definitely lean into some professional development opportunities, get with my innovation coach, go to a lunch and learn, try to enter into a conference that might be, valuable, because I think you're going to enjoy it. And this is not to be scary when I say this, but everybody is afraid of things that are new, right? Until they get into the learning piece, and then they decide that they're going to manage this. This is going to change the world. I mean, this is akin to the printing press, what AI can do. I said it at the panel, this is not like adding a microwave into your kitchen. This is like redoing the entire kitchen. So this is not a tool or one extra thing to think about. AI is being used in industry and government already so much, most people don't even know. It's changing the world, and it will change everything around us in the world when it comes to knowledge and content and communication. So I think we have to lean into that over time.
So I want to ask one more question, and this is a way we end every podcast. If you could wave a magic wand, what is one thing you would fix in education?
Wow, that's a big, big question. And I appreciate you asking it. I know just enough after about 29 years in this profession to be dangerous. And so sometimes I might give an answer that might not sound typical, but we have to create student-centered cultures in schools, and we haven't done that for over 100 years now. So we all walk around talking about all the things we need to do for children and the things that children should have and that children need, and we want to empower children, and then we don't do it. We continue to work in adult-centric environments in schools. And you might have that, teacher or critic that would say, well, Kirk, the adults have to learn to do it in order for the kids to be able to do it. And I totally agree. Adults have to learn to support children in their learning. And teachers are very, very valuable. Coaches are very valuable as mentors. But we have to empower students, and not just when they're in 12th grade. We've got to empower them from the time they're in preschool. And AI literally puts a genie on their shoulder for the rest of their life. And quite frankly, if we don't use teachers and coaches, they're going to turn to someone else. And children and families have been doing this now for decades. They've been looking elsewhere, and they've been going away from public education when they see an alternative that they think can give them a service or quality that they're not getting where they are. As public educators, we have to double down on this idea that we can do it the best. We can provide the best, and most important, we can teach leadership and character and content better than any other venue. So you want your children to be empowered with us. So teachers are very valuable, and we have to lean into this. And if we do, we can be the role models, but we have to give the kids the ability to make decisions, learn what they want to learn, and learn with teams. And if we teach them to be leaders, we're going to be just fine. There are so many school districts not teaching leadership. They're not empowering children. They're running like an adult-driven business. And we've got to get back to this idea of what school is about for their future. That's what I would do if I could do it with a magic wand.
I love that. I think it was a great answer. I'm ready to give you a magic wand right now, if I had one. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And before we leave, can you tell us, are you going to be giving any other, are you going to be on any other panels coming up, or AI information sessions?
I think we're working on some things here in Ohio. There'll be another AI conference out of Butler County's ESC that'll be happening in April that I'm looking forward to presenting at. And I'm going to continue working with our AASA Jason Learning STEM Consortium. Again, our partners through ASA and Jason are doing some amazing things with AI learning tiles for children and teachers that allow people to kind of plug and play what they want to use. I'm really fascinated by some of that work, and we'll continue to lean into the other partner organizations that are pushing AI teaching, because I need to learn some more too.
Awesome. I will want to learn some more too, so I'll have to check those out, and I will share those details in our show notes if anyone else wants to check you out and find where you are presenting and what you're talking about. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate you.